Okay, good morning from Canada. Welcome to our weekly live practice. My name is Joanna, and I will be guiding you today and every Thursday at this time. Welcome if it's your first time participating. I am a alumni student. I did the 200 and 300 hour programs with Your Yoga Flow, and I now have the privilege of being part of their online teaching platform. So today's class is going to be a Hatha practice called Props Are Our Friends. So we do a lot of marking and evaluating of the practicums that come in. And one of the common pieces of feedback we offer is more inclusion of props. I know that in the practicum, we are looking for you to incorporate props twice in the class, but once you are out into the real world, the more you can incorporate props in your class, the better for your students. So I just want us to get really familiar with using the props and comfortable demonstrating with them, so that you have lots of tools in your yoga belt to use once you are out teaching a wide variety of students. So for today's class, we're going to use as many things as we can. We're going to need 2 blocks and a chip foam block, a bolster, a strap, a blanket, and an eye pillow if you have them. At the beginning of a yoga class, I really encourage you to let your students know what props you're going to be needed. You know as the teacher, but they don't know. So if you don't tell them, you might find that partway through your class, you end up with this scramble or dash as students get off their mat and try and locate the prop that you're talking about. So get your class nice and organized and prepared. And I really do recommend suggesting the props needed for the class right from the very beginning. So those are all the things we're going to need. If you don't have those things, offer options. Offer rolled up blankets, cushions off the couch if you're teaching online and people can grab other items at home. Thick books are a great option if people don't have blocks, etc., etc. Oh, and if you don't have a strap, a band or a belt or a bathrobe belt or something like that. Okay, so we're going to move mindfully through a Hatha practice, and I'm going to include props in every single pose. So you can watch and take notes, or you can participate, whatever works best for you. So first shape we're going to come into is Sukhasana, tall, comfortable seat. I'm going to be sitting on a chip foam block. Some students might prefer to sit on a foam block, bolster, or a rolled up blanket. I'll leave it up to you. Some students will choose to sit directly on the floor with no props underneath them. Some students might find that they need to sit in a chair for this, so offer that option as well. And also I'm offering the option of placing a blanket in front of the legs so that the ankles have something cushioned. It's been a new favorite of mine to put a blanket underneath the ankles. And then I'm also going to offer the option of your 2 blocks underneath your knees if you need some extra support there. Here we are in Sukhasana, tall, comfortable seat. Already we've mentioned 3 different props, or 4 if you include a chair. And we are beginning our practice in our comfortable seat. So every student has been offered something that will perhaps make this shape more comfortable for them. Close your eyes, roll your shoulders up, back, and down, and start to deepen your breath. Take a moment of gratitude for the props that are supporting you, that are helping you to feel more comfortable and more grounded. Acknowledging that the props are our friends in our yoga practice. Using the props is highly encouraged. Props can be empowering. Props can allow us to access shapes that before we maybe couldn't. Let us make props part of the dance of creating our yoga practice. May we use props as fluidly as we move through transitions, as we move from shape to shape, as we offer alignment cues. May props be moved into that dance. Let us not see props as an afterthought. Let them be integral to the practice. Relax and soften the belly a little more as we anchor and root down. Continue to receive your breath as it is. On your next inhale, lift your shoulders up to your ears. And exhale, roll your shoulders back and down. And again, inhale, shoulders up. Exhale, shoulders back and down. Take a big stretch, both arms wide and up to the sky as you inhale. And as you exhale, float your arms all the way down. Let's take Supi grind just to lubricate the hips. So as you inhale, sweep your chest over your legs and then circle the chest back. Imagine your pelvis is the wooden bowl and your spine is the wooden spoon. You're lubricating your hips, your back, and your belly here. So good. And then just simply change direction, recognizing where perhaps you need a little more support in your practice today. Your body might be calling out for attention in certain areas. Listen to that. And take one more circle this way. And then sit as tall as you are, taking a big breath in and a full breath out. From here, let us remove the blocks from under our legs if we have them. Remove the chip foam block or another prop from under our feet. And let us move into tabletop position, turning the blanket so that it is underneath our knees for cushioning. Once you're in tabletop position, hands underneath your shoulders, knees underneath your hips. Let's just continue with bringing fluidity into the back by just swaying the hips a little side to side. And then let's come to neutral and move through cat and cow. So as you inhale, tilt your tail towards the sky, sink your belly towards the earth, and rise your chin and your chest up. And as you exhale, rounding the spine, looking towards your belly button. Just like that, inhale forwards and up. This is your cow pose. Exhale, rounding the spine. This is cat. One more time, inhale forwards and up, using your whole breath in to finish the movement. And exhale, rounding the spine. Come back to neutral. On your next inhale, float your right arm into the sky and look towards your right hand, opening your chest. As you exhale, take your right arm underneath your left arm and either lower your right shoulder and right ear onto the earth, or grab a hold of your two blocks and place them so that your head and your shoulder can rest onto those props. It's great to offer the props as space fillers. So for some people, it won't be accessible to lower their head and shoulder to the floor. So giving them something to fill that space will allow them to benefit from the shape in the same way. We always want the body to rest into the earth at some point. And in this particular shape, it's the head and the shoulder we want to relax into the floor. That left hand can stay where it is on the mat, or a couple of options for the left hand. You could walk the left fingers forward and slightly walk the left fingers over to the right. Or you could float that left arm into the sky, or maybe even wrap that left arm behind your back. So you're opening your chest more to the left and slightly up to the sky. Find what works for your stability and provides you with a lovely twist through the upper back while also complementing your breath. Taking 3 more breaths here, trying to keep your hips on the same line, your belly button slightly drawn in. So nice. And then gently place that left hand back onto the floor where you can see it. Press into the left hand and come all the way up to tabletop. And pour out your exhale breath. Rock gently side to side. If you had blocks for the first side, I recommend just keeping them on the floor in between your hands, ready for the second side. Inhale, sweep your left arm into the hand. Exhale, left arm under the right one, lowering your left ear and your left shoulder either onto your blocks or onto your mat. Once the upper body is resting into something, you can then explore what you want to do with your right hand and arm and with your chest. So again, right hand can stay on the floor, or right fingers can walk to the front of the mat and slightly over to the left, or right arm could go all the way into the sky, opening the chest more to the right, maybe wrapping your right hand behind your back. Your toes for this can be tucked or untucked. See what feels more stable for you. And start to receive your breath here. Three more breaths. And start to bring that right hand onto the mat. Slowly press into the right hand and come into tabletop. Exhaling your breath. Adding a little bit of movement, rocking side to side. If you have blocks in front of you, just placing them to one side. And now spreading your fingers, tucking your toes, and coming into a downward facing dog, rising your pelvis towards the sky, melting your heels towards the floor. If this doesn't feel great in your body, you can remain in tabletop, or you could take a couple of breaths in child's pose, Balasana, which we will come back to shortly. This is just a transitional moment. As you're ready, you can look to your hands, bend your knees, and gently walk your feet to your hands at the top of your mat. Here, you might like your 2 blocks under your hands as little space fillers between your hands and the floor. Take a halfway lift, lengthen the spine. And as you exhale, fold over your two legs. This is often a prop moment that is missed. Giving your hands something to rest on if your hands don't reach the floor. It's also a great option for students who have vertigo, dizziness, nausea, or high blood pressure, as they can rest their hands on the blocks and keep looking at the floor rather than lowering their head lower than their heart and looking towards their shins. Really, really great prop option. Keep the knees soft. Take another halfway lift. And exhale, fold. Step back with your right foot and lower your right knee, maybe back onto your blanket, or your right knee could come onto your chip bone block if you prefer, giving the right knee some cushioning, especially if you have knee sensitivity. Your two hands are either on the floor, either side of your left foot, or hands are on your blocks if that's more accessible. The blocks are great because they have 3 heights, so you can choose which height works best for your body. I have them on the highest height right now. Bend into that front knee, stacking your front knee over your front ankle, and then lift your chest nice and tall. Breathe into your right hip flexor, the front of your right hip. And keep thinking about rolling your shoulders up, back, and down, and extending your chest forwards. Keeping your right hand on the floor or on your block, float your left arm into the sky and open up your chest. Having a block under that right hand can support a lot of students and help them access this open twist. Exhale, lower your left hand onto your blocks or onto the floor. Take your pelvis back in space and lengthen your left leg any amount. It doesn't have to be completely straight. You can have a nice juicy bend in that left knee. We're working a little more length into the back of our left hamstring. We're looking down at our left shin. We're hugging the left hip back and down. And like I said, we're either hands to blocks or hands to the floor. You can choose any height for those blocks that works for you. Feel free to come down or go up a height if needed. Focus on your breath into the back of the left leg. Lots of breath here. Half Hanuman, half split. Option if you want to take this a little deeper is to shuffle that left heel a little further forwards and walk your right knee a little further back. Just be mindful, it's going to make the stretch a lot deeper. So just check in that you can access this while still generating a regular soft breath. And then when you're ready, bend back into that left knee. Your left foot is on the floor. You can tuck your right toes and lift your right knee and step forwards into a forward fold, hands to blocks or hands to the earth. Take a halfway lift and exhale, fold. Another one of those, halfway lift, exhale, fold. Step back with your left foot, lowering your left knee onto a chip foam block or a blanket. Or if you don't have knee sensitivity, you can lower that left knee directly onto your mat. Walking your hands underneath your shoulders, you're either on your blocks or hands on the mat. Right foot is spread wide into the floor, bending that right knee, lifting your chin and your chest, and breathing sweetly into your left hip flexor. Breathing into your lower belly, creating space and vitality there. Keep your left hand on a block or on the floor. Float your right arm into the sky, turning into your heart space. And then exhale, lower that right hand. Take your pelvis back in space, lengthening the right leg any amount, flexing the right foot, and leaning your chest towards your right toes. Again, hands are on your blocks or hands are on the floor. Choose what works for you. Remember, you can lower the height of your blocks if needed. If you're wanting to work a little more, you could shuffle that right heel further forwards and left knee further back. Take your time with that. Go nice and steady. Deep breaths. And then bend that right knee, right foot back onto the mat. Tuck your left toes, lift your left knee, and step forwards once again. Uttanasana. Take a halfway lift, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, fold. This time, bend your knees a lot and roll up through your spines, leaving your blocks where they are, coming all the way to stand. Let your head be heavy. Once you get to the top, roll your shoulders up, back, and down, standing in Tadasana, mountain pose. Take a big breath in and a big breath out. Lovely. Inhale both of your arms up to the sky. Exhale, forward fold. Maybe hands come onto your blocks. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Now shuffle your feet as wide as your mat and turn your 10 toes off your mat. Keep your heels on your mat. And let's come into Malasana, Yogi squat. So for this, lots of options again. Bending the knees. Maybe your hands stay on your blocks. Maybe this is enough for you, your pelvis a little higher. Great. Option to release your hands from the blocks. Place your forearms onto your inner thighs and start to sense your stability and balance. You've always got the blocks there if you need them. Further to this, some of you might use your blocks as a little stool. You can sit your pelvis onto one of your blocks or stack two of your blocks if you like, and rest your hands in prayer. Press your forearms into your inner thighs and lift your spine tall. Others of you will be hovering your pelvis just off the floor, but you might find that you can't press your heels down into the mat. So if that's the case, put your blocks underneath your heels so that you have something to really ground and anchor into. Lots of options for Malasana, Yogi squat. 3 breaths into the pelvis. And then lowering your hands in front of you, lengthening your legs, removing your props, shuffling your feet back into parallel. Take a halfway lift. Exhale, fold, and stepping back into either downward facing dog or tabletop if you prefer. And then lowering your knees onto your mat. Again, you can bring your knees onto the padding of your blanket if that feels nice. And we're going to move into child's pose, Balasana. I'm going to give you lots of prop options here. So option 2, widen your knees, connect your big toes, melt your chest and forehead towards the floor, arms extending long. If you need extra support here, place a bolster between your pelvis and your heels if there's a big gap there. If there's a gap between your forehead and the floor, take a block at whatever height works for you and use it as a little shelf for your forehead. You can have your elbows more bent and your forearms closer to you. Breathing into the length of your spine, the sides of your rib cage, the sides of your waist. Three more breaths. And then releasing your forehead, removing any props that are underneath your body, other than your blanket that can stay. Walk your knees closer to one another and then sit onto either your right or left hip and bring your legs forward. We're going to set up Paschimottanasana, a seated forward fold. So bring your strap close by. I am going to sit on a block. Now, I always offer a block here because when we lengthen our legs, you'll notice a lot of your students have the tendency to round the back and their feet feel very far away from their hands and they find it very difficult to create length and sit tall. There's a lot of restriction in the front of the hips. So elevating the pelvis on a block and encouraging your students to sit right on the very edge of that block, almost like they're going to fall off it, is going to help them create more length and more hinge. It's going to tilt the pelvic bowl in the direction we want to go, forward towards our feet. So offer that option. Also, really important cue, we don't have to have the legs glued together in a seated forward fold. In fact, that creates a lot of contraction and restriction in the hip flexors. Encourage your students to have their legs, their hip distance apart. And then notice if the hamstrings are tight. If they are, sliding either a rolled up blanket, bolster, extra blocks, cushions, whatever they have, under the knees so there is softness there. And then final option is your lovely strap hooked under the soles of the 2 feet and wrapped around the hands. From here, you would sit nice and tall and inhale the breath to begin. And as you exhale, hinge forwards at the hips and lean the heart towards the toes. That's a great cue because it keeps length in the spine and avoids that rounding and trying to get the forehead towards the knees. That's a very different sensation. There'll be more stretch felt perhaps in the back when that's offered, whereas when we lengthen the spine and hinge forward from the hips, there's potentially more of a stretch in the backs of the legs and along the entire back lines of the body. So these are all the prop options for Paschimottanasana. You can offer all of these to your students and demonstrate them all, and then allow your students to pick and choose at the ones that they need. Some students won't use any props at all for this shape, and that's great. Others will use all the options that you give, and that will really support them. Let's take 3 more breaths. And then firstly, releasing the strap, slowly rolling up through the spine until the head is lifted. Take a big breath in at the top and a big breath out. Lovely. So softening the knees here so that the feet are to the floor, removing any prop that was under the legs first, followed by removing any prop that was underneath the pelvis. And now we're going to make our way onto the floor. So for this, we're going to potentially use more props, of course, and come into a supported reclined butterfly position. For some students, they won't want to have props under their back because of many reasons. So firstly, just offer that your students can come all the way down onto their back with no props and connect to that butterfly shape. For students that might enjoy prop options here, first option I would offer would be the long bolster or the rolled up blanket. And I'm just going to adjust my blanket here. So my blanket is just being used as a little pad for the pelvis right now. And the bolster is what I'm using for the spine. The pelvis will be on the blanket, bolster is for the length of the spine. And then I always offer a block to put at the far end of the bolster where the head is going to be. Your body is on a gentle incline because not everybody will enjoy the head being back. It might create too much restriction in the back of the neck. So offering that, I'll show you that one. So pelvis to the floor, length of the spine, back of the head to your bolster, soles of the feet together, knees wide, arms wide in supported butterfly pose. And then there's just one more variation I would offer. This is for students who perhaps have a deeper back bend practice and are not working with any back sensitivity that they know of. I would offer 2 blocks behind them. So they're going to set the blocks up in a T shape, like so, on their middle height. The first block is going to go in the shoulder blades. The second block is for the back of the head. And then this one is a little trickier to come into. So I always say take your time or ask the teacher to come and help you if that is an option. So forearms come down and then in between the blades. So not too low. And then the second block is for the back of the head. And then again, soles of the feet together, knees wide, arms wide. You are here and you're supported. Butterfly. If students have spare props or that the props would be more beneficial under the hips or under the knees, then offer that option too. And if students find that having the legs in butterfly isn't working for them, just encourage them to have the legs long and wide in Shavasana. If students do have support under their back in this shape, I also offer a little self-massage. So I would encourage some gentle shoulder rolls. I would encourage the hands to the shoulders, the elbows, and maybe even float the arms wide and up and all the way back behind them, and then down by their sides. Always moving with breath. So anytime the arms are moving in an upward motion, that's an inhale breath, and anytime arms are moving in a downward motion, that's an exhale breath. Let's just take 3 more breaths here. And then I would encourage hands to the outsides of the knees if you're in butterfly. And just gently bring the knees back together. If the legs are long in Shavasana, bend the knees, feet to the floor. To come out of this shape, if you have props underneath your body, you can either lift yourself up or gently roll to one side, removing your props, and then coming all the way down onto your back again. At this point, I'm going to remove the blanket from underneath my pelvis so that it is ready for Shavasana in a moment. Another great tip with incorporating props into your class fluidly is that when you eventually bring your class onto their backs for that portion of the class, it's usually near the end of class, encourage them to have all the props that they're going to need at the side of their mat. Often we've left props at the front of the mat when we've been using them. And then when they're called, when we're on our backs, we have to get up, we have to find them, we then come back down. So in order to make props fluid and integral in our practice, having the props near the side of your mat will really help them make them more accessible. So here we are on our back. We're just going to take one more shape before Shavasana, and that is supported bridge pose. So soles of the feet are to the mat, and they are hip distance apart. The heels are close to your glutes. And at this point, I say to students, you don't have to put any prop underneath your body. If this is enough for you today, you don't want to elevate your pelvis, you could stay like this or simply walk your feet wide and let your knees rest in center. Hands to lower belly is a great release for the lower back. If you're wanting to take this a little further, you could put either a rolled up blanket under the pelvis, a foam block, a chip foam block, a bolster, something with a little bit of height but is also soft. So I am going to choose the bolster, press down into the feet, lift the pelvis, and slide your chosen prop underneath you. And then rest the back of your pelvis to it and just check in that that feels okay today. Hands can be on your lower belly or on the floor, and allowing breath in and out of the lower belly. And then further to this, we can play with wind release pose or knee to chest pose, Aparna Asana. So for this shape, you'd invite the right knee into your chest and hold on to the right shin or right hamstring and slide the left leg down the mat. If it doesn't feel comfortable to straighten the left leg, no problem. Have more of a bend in that left knee. You're pushing the sole of the left foot forward as you relax your shoulders down. If accessing your right leg is not possible from here, you could try wrapping your strap around your right shin or around your right hamstring and holding the strap around your two hands and just encouraging that hug of the knee towards you. Relax your shoulders, breathe into your lower belly 3 more times. And of course, in a longer practice, you could take longer in each of these shapes we've picked today. place your right foot to the mat when you're ready, followed by your left foot. And take a breath in and a breath out. And then bring your left knee to your chest, hands or strap around your left shin or hamstring, right leg sliding down the mat as much as is comfortable for you. Couple of sweet breaths. And then releasing that left foot to the mat, followed by the right foot. Take a breath in and a breath out. If you have a prop under your pelvis, press down into your feet in parallel, lift your pelvis, remove the prop, and roll all the way down onto your back. From here, we're going to set up at Shavasana. So I am inviting a bolster under the knees, legs wide. I'm also going to place the chip foam block behind the head to offer some cushioning there. I'm going to take the blanket on top of the body. This can be opened out fully for warmth, or you could offer the blanket folded and just resting on the front of the torso. That can be really anchoring and grounding. And then an eye pillow or a piece of clothing or an eye mask over the eyes, shielding out any remaining light in the room. Legs wide, arms slightly wide, palms facing up. Exhaling your breath, nuzzling your body more into the floor and into the support of your prop. I'll call you from Shavasana when it's time. No more to do now. If you have more time to dedicate to your Shavasana today, then please stay as you are and take all the time you need. However, if it's time for you to come out, start to deepen your breath and add a little bit of movement into your fingers and toes, into your wrists and ankles. And take a nice big full body stretch as you inhale. And as you exhale, hug your knees into your chest. And rock gently across your lower back until you roll onto your right side. And then start to move all the way up and into a tall, comfortable seat of Sukhasana to close our practice. Again, you could sit on a bolster, a block. You could put blocks under your knees, blanket under your ankles, or on your legs now for warmth. And as you sit, just notice this journey with your props today and how they have really supported your practice or given you ideas of how to support your students in their practice. Let us continue to find creative and safe ways to use props and make them accessible to our students and make them integral to our demonstrations in our practices. One feeling breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. Namaste. Thank you so much. If you have any suggestions for future classes, anything you want to work on, you're curious about, you need support with as you plan your own practicums, please leave me a comment and let me know. These classes are for you and your learning. So any way I can support you on that journey, just let me know. Hope this was useful. Send me any comments, questions below, and I'll see you soon.